I begin as always with the official hello and welcome to all of my good friends out there. To just anyone out there that's watching, welcome to another edition, a weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings, where, as I always say, my promise and guarantee to you is I will take your grope in the murkiness. I will try to make some sense out of the stock market. And in turn, I will try to provide you with some quality trade setups. Now, normally you're always scratching your head for some quality entertainment, especially when it comes to financing. But boy, oh boy, do we ever have some stuff to talk about, right? I mean, what a week this has been. And before I get started with all that, let me not just jump ahead with all the hype here. This is going to be the market mutterings for February 1st. So, I hope you guys did very well in January. I hope things turned out the way you wanted them to. And if you need help with your trading somewhere, either here on the screen or down in the description box, you will find some links to direct you to our live trading community. Now, let's get to the matters at hand. There's not a whole lot I'm going to elaborate right here about the Game Stop situation, other than try to provide you with the next step in the equation is what do we do now as traders and investors? And where should we put our money? For my banter and thoughts and mutters about that, I'm also going to post some links around here, or just check out the last happy hour. And I'm not going to go into that real quickly, but it was just really a talk about how I think there's more pieces to this puzzle other than just the Wall Street bets. And I think it's just a good listen for everyone to understand that there's more than meets the eye with this particular story. And it's actually quite brilliant to get the herd thinking one direction when the real true culprits are going the other way. So give it a listen and tell me what you think. It also really lets you guys that are new in trading and wanting to know if something like this has ever happened before. Yes, it's happened before. I've been here for 23 years. There's been all kinds of market manipulation. It goes to the highest level. And like I was saying in the video, how could you leave out the Fed? The biggest market manipulator of all time is the Fed, but that's something else down the road. So again, I hope you guys are safe. I hope you're trading well. I hope you're dealing with everything well. What a year it has been, like I said in the video. You've got all kinds of political things going on. You have the change of the year. You got this Game Stop. You got wildness in the market. You got celebrities now talking about it. Just a crazy time. And only time will tell where we go from here. So I would obviously say this. I'm not your GameStop expert. This is something that I don't do. I've made a handsome living off of staying disciplined and doing the right things with my money. And I always encourage people to do that. And the biggest fear or any small sorrow that I have in situations like this is when newer traders come in and they look up to people that they think are protecting them, and they're not. They're getting involved in assets that they don't know how to trade. And there's more moving parts and components to the market. And before you start throwing around money aimlessly, and I understand, man, don't get me wrong about wanting to make money and being aggressive with that. Everybody has the right to do that. But there's always other component parts that you have to understand what you're getting yourself into before you enter this arena. It's always been sophisticated, scrupulous, and a bunch of other things. So I hope you guys are safe. Now, what I want to do is this. There are other stocks that we're going to talk about today that I think have this short squeeze potential. Now, if you go back to last week's market mutterings, one thing I was saying is I kind of was thinking, man, there might be a market top here. And one of the things I was thinking why there might be a market top was that I've seen GameStop types before. We talked about dry ships, right? We've talked about KBIO. We've talked about Tilray. Nothing new there. But it was this collective movement in a lot of stocks across the board where you saw this mass squeeze happening everywhere. That's something I haven't really seen too much of. Definitely not on that level where you've seen so many. Well, at that time, I thought maybe it was just this burst of euphoria. But now that the Wall Street bets thing came out, I realized what happens. This is all about funds and larger institutions rebalancing their book and moving down their exposure to shorts. That's what created it. So all of these places are looking at, hey, anything that's heavily shorted, we better cut our exposure to it. That makes perfect sense. My job is how do I make money on this? What is my next step? So I'm thinking here's a couple that maybe are not on the radar of everyone else right now that have very high short interest that could provide trading opportunities. Now, these ones that I look at also, I must tell you, this is not my forte of how I've made all my money trading. It's just something that's a very short term, but there's opportunity to be made. If you do this, I highly suggest that you control your risk the very best you can. And the ones I give you, I believe, are not sort of GameStop risk where you could wake up to halts, where you could wake up to 50% gap downs. But make no mistake, guys, we're in the stock market, and I'm not going to be one of these people that lead the lambs to slaughter. Understand what you're trading here, that if you're trading a squeezer, that it could perhaps get halted, that there could be regulations on this, that there could be shutdowns. I doubt it on the ones that I'm going to give you. but you never know, and you need to be prepared. So the first one that I'm going to talk about here is Fizz. Now, this is kind of an interesting story. Fizz was a stock that I had traded several years ago, and I remember actually like making fun of this. It was like when the Fed was really getting pumped up with the QE, and I was like, man, this soda company was like $20 and went to $150. I know for you guys now that coming into the market, that seems like a normal state of business, but 5 years ago, that was like, wow, what a big move that is in such a short period of time. Now, I want to open up the daily chart a little bit here because make no mistake as well, Fizz has already moved, okay? And I'm not going to lie to you right here. I know there's going to be people who do this. I'm providing you with some trading opportunities here. Hear me all the way out because I have some very special message here at the end. I think this was a good one for trade. Don't hold this overnight. Don't hold any of these overnight. Really, I think these are just intraday trades right now because I think the risk right now overnight is too high because you never know when there could be an emergency Congress, Senate sort of some rule change or something that may dampen this. So I highly suggest please don't do that. If it's optionable, something like Fizz, maybe that. But I think at this point where these things have squeezed, that options may not even, they're probably going to be really expensive. But watch this one. This one's a little bit more solid company overall. It's been around for a little while. It has some basic fundamentals to it. It's not bankrupt like AMC or GME. It's been around for a while. It already had its initial squeeze, but I think you'd want to pay attention to this. If you're somebody out there that's on the alpha hunt looking for some good day trades, this is something that I think can really push through. And don't underestimate the herd here. If everything gets going and you start seeing this thing move towards 200, don't rule out a quick squeeze to 400. But again, I can reiterate this enough, is don't hold this. Don't hold this overnight, or don't trade something here that you're not willing to lose. Because I mean, I know it's a rare situation or scenario, but there's a lot of risk and a lot of heat going down the pike here. Don't be ignorant about it. Trade at your own risk and accordingly, okay? I like Fizz. Now, one here I also have is a little bit different because I featured this on one of my hot stocks video. Now, I have maybe a little bit different perception when it comes to Fubo because I think what we're looking, oh, wait a second. Let me show you something right here with Fizz first. The short interest on Fizz right here is 62. So, not like an AMC or a GME at 120. But again, maybe the theory and thought here as we're looking at this is rather than going into the lion's den and trading the king of the space here, the one that's got all of the attention, you might find less stress and better movement out of some of the other ones that are quietly not on everyone's radar. So when you're looking at the whole Wall Street bets, you're looking at all the hashtags, no one's really talking about Fizz. I talked about Fizz last week. It was a great trader this week, but this is what I'm saying. Not a lot of people are talking about it. So the heat that's something on this, I don't even think this is part of the restricted one. They went like for American Airlines and left Fizz out of the equation. So I think this is a good stock to make some trades on with a high short float. Now, the other one is Fubo. I'm going to have a little different one because I don't necessarily agree with what I said just a minute ago. I'm disagreeing with myself about holding Fubo overnight because I have a position in Fubo. Now, my thoughts about Fubo here is I'm different. I've actually been swinging Fubo for quite some time down towards the teens. So my entry price, the way I'm trading this is completely different. But I also think Fubo is like a Fizz, but it's not directly related. You have a high short interest. We can take a look at that real quick on this. Again, these are not AMC types, but Fubo is up there in the 75%. So it's got a large flow to it. This one has already made a parabolic move. Now, this one I would say out of the two, I would feel more comfortable holding it overnight because I am holding it overnight. And I think that any regulations come by, again, these are up to doing this video, these are not on the blacklist right now, like the AMCs, the GME. And again, that's our thing. We're not going to sit here and cry over the spilt milk, so to speak. We're going to take this situation with GME and say, look, we already know what's out there. We know what's going on. What can we do as traders to make money from this point on? What's the very best thing that we need to be doing with our money? What's the best ones? So if we're going to trade the squeeze stocks, here's a couple of them that have a pretty good setup. Technically, Fizz, questionable. But I think they're off the radar there, and then we'll give you some great ones. So I think Fizz, day trade only, please. Day trade only. Fubo, something you could probably swing a little bit, but please understand the volatility here. This one has already had a huge spike. Now, I'm also under no illusions here. I ain't walking this thing up to 250 or 500 or saying that's going to be that way. I'm talking about maybe you get a repetitive squeeze that brings you to 60, 70, maybe lucky, you're 100. I'm taking profits on the way up. I'm not getting caught holding the bag here. That's not how I made it to this stature in my career at 23 years, is holding bag and being ignorant. I did that in my first 3 years. That's why I lost 2 accounts. I'm not stupid like that anymore. I'm stupid in other things, but I'm not stupid in that. So kind of keep those in mind. Now, here's what I want to do before I get to the tail end of this. I want to give you a bonus one where I think we're now using our brains to move outside of the box. Well, there's obviously at no other time in recent, since 2008 for me, that Wall Street has been so hated. And again, guys, this is why I keep talking about why experience is so important, because there's a lot of new traders in here that's thinking this is the first time there's been some revolt. I'm not trying to rain on your parade, guys. I'm just saying they think there's some kind of revolt. There's always been revolts with Wall Street. We had Occupy Wall Street a few years ago, if you remember that movement. There was all kinds of people throwing hissy fits and stuff, and rightfully so. Again, you should be throwing hissy fits now. Let's get some change going on. But it happened in '08 too. But there's always, like I say, for every action, there's a opposite reaction to the event. And I think when you're saying something about hating the stock market, I think about, what is the poster child for anti-establishment assets? What is that? What is it, guys? What is the ultimate shove it to the big man asset? Bitcoins, altcoins, the unregulated asset themselves. Now, I think you have a window here where you can see a sympathy move that already aids to the bullish move that Bitcoin had. Now, this is not a short squeeze one here. So we got short squeezes at first where we talked about Fizz and Fubos with the Fs. I want you to look at this Mara. There's also tons of other ones. BT, you can trade Global Bitcoin Trust. Or you know what, guys? You could just trade, if you've got something like with a Coinbase, you can just trade the coins outright. I'm just bringing up a stock here because that's what I'm looking at. I can see this thing making a run. And I think at this point, a stock trade like this, where you're sitting with a stop underneath of this 15s right here, a manageable risk, giving up about $4 or $5 here on something, is worth it. Because what we don't have is, we have sort of a never-ending reward sometimes. When this stuff squeezes, and what I mean by that is when it squeezes, it could just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and go to 50s, 60s, 100. Nonetheless, I think what this is going to create is going to start laying the groundwork for reasons for people to invest in Bitcoins and altcoins. So keep that theme going through February, that I myself are going to start looking. I have some positions in these. I don't have a position in Fizz, but I should be completely upfront. I have a position in Fubo, and I have a position in Mara, and a position in BT. I'm playing this. I mentioned that in the other video. I might be wrong, but I'm willing to take that risk, and I think the risk far outweighs the reward. The reward far outweighs the risk at this point. I'm just talking too fast. I'm sorry. I gotta. Okay, now let me get back on track. So I think those are good. Let's pay attention to that theme. Now, there's one thing else I want to share with you here just real quick before we sign off with this one. And that is, if you're reading around, I'm not going to go into this because it's way too complicated to talk about this in the short time that we have. With this short squeeze that's going on across the boards, these funds and other institutions are under pressure to rebalance out their books. Now, to make a long story short, I'll do another video on this some other time. If you guys are interested, just put it down in the comment box. But in order to do that, one of the ways is to raise cash via liquid assets. Liquid assets are things like Apple, Microsoft, the big boys, the ones that's been running. There's something outside of, like when you're thinking about Bitcoin, there's something outside of thinking maybe what this little short squeeze has. We could be a week or two ahead of time, but it could lead to a market sell-off based on liquidity issues of pulling out gains to pay for losses, creating liquidity. It's more complicated than that. I'm just throwing that out here real quick. I probably need to do another video about it. I'm saying that watch this market here. You could get a big shake down here for the short term to rebalance all of this out. Only time will tell. So as I wrap this up, I've talked long enough, and I apologize for just yodeling here, but I want to watch my two short squeezers going into this week, which is Fizz and Fubo. Careful about holding Fizz overnight. Careful about holding both overnight, but Fubo probably a little bit better than Fizz. I want you to look for Bitcoin throughout the week, or just any other altcoins in general, however you want to shake that up. I think the anti-establishment asset is the theme. You're seeing that with silver, the real money. You're seeing some sort of flight into that direction. So watch that sector. And also pay attention to the market. What we're seeing, based on what a lot of newer traders don't understand, liquidity throughout the markets, that you might see a quick sell-off here to rebalance out institutional books. Only time will tell. All right, guys, I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Please take care. Please trade well, and I'll talk to you soon.